Hey, what's going on, guys? Top Shot Reel Cleaning here again. So I've had a lot of requests here lately that they wanted to see me pull apart a reel that has not been cleaned yet. 90% of the time, I take apart reels that I've already cleaned just to show you how to take them apart. So a lot of people were wanting me to take one apart just, I guess, to see how bad they are, see exactly where the grease builds up, or see where the dirtiest parts of it are. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for you today. I have not cleaned this reel yet. This is a Abu Garcia 5000. It's the Ambassador, of course. This one's made in Sweden. Great reel. Good little trolling reel, depending on what you're fishing for. So we're going to take this guy apart again. Just like always, we're going to go ahead and take apart the left side and the level wind first off. In this video, second video is going to be the full right side plate. So let's go ahead and get to it. Just like any other Ambassador, got 3 screws over here. So we're going to go ahead and pop those guys out real quick. Just a little background on this reel. It was brought in by a customer and just wanted it cleaned up there. He said there was nothing wrong with it. Just wanted to get it cleaned because it's been sitting around in his garage or house or whatever, wherever he had it for about 20 years, he said. So just forewarning, there's no telling what we're going to find in here. So let's go ahead, pull those guys out of there like that. Go ahead, pop the side plate off, see what we got in here. Okay, awesome. So it's not that dirty at all. There's some dried out grease on this, of course. So take this out of there. I'm going to pop this gear off of there here in a little while. Of course, I got a car alarm going off now. But anyway, this little gear right here, we're going to pop that off. I'll show you how here in a minute. But other than that, our spool comes out. Should just fall right out. There we go. It's got some line wrapped up around the side of it. Shaft comes out. Go ahead and take that off. This is normally why I tape the line down. So again, go ahead, pop this side off. Because this is a 5000 series reel, we have a bushing in here. We do not have a bearing, but we're still going to take that out and clean that just to be sure that there's no metal shavings or anything in there that's just going to eat that bushing up. This side, same way. We have a bushing as well. And there's this little keeper band that runs along this ring right here. So you take a little flathead screwdriver, pop that up, pops off of there. Just popped over here to the side of the table real quick. So grab that. This right here is your centrifugal brake. Again, the way that these work, whenever you cast this reel, these little centrifugal brakes come out. And what happens is they rub right here on the inside of this race around here. That helps slow your spool down. That way you're not backlashing as soon as you let that spool go. So these you can actually push in. You'll feel them click. They'll stay in for you. After that, go ahead, just pull that straight off the top. Comes right off. I like to use the shaft that the spool rides on. You can use the screwdriver, something like that. Just be careful so you don't scar that bushing up. But we'll go in this side. Go ahead and push that bottom bushing out, just like that. Turn it around. Pop that guy out as well. Now, under this one, there is going to be this little copper washer. Save that. Make sure that that makes it back in the reel. This is very important. You have a brass bushing and you have an aluminum spool. Brass is going to be harder than aluminum. It's going to eat the inside of this spool up. You do not want that to happen. Well, copper being stronger than aluminum, it's going to eat away at this before it eats away at your spool here. So make sure that that makes it back in there. If you're not confident that you'll remember, go ahead, drop it back in there right now. That way it's already back in there. So go ahead, set these aside. Now what I do, I use an ultrasonic cleaner. That's what I'm going to recommend. I recommend that everything you take off of here that needs to be cleaned, first off, wipe it down, get all the excess grease off of it. Excess grease, dirt, all that stuff. We're going to take it, wipe it down, get all that off. Then it's going to go over into the ultrasonic cleaner. That's the way I choose to clean mine, and I recommend highly that you do the same because that ultrasonic cleaner, it's going to make these parts shine like new. So we're going to take that off of there. Next up is going to be our level wind. Right here, you do have that little flathead screw. Now, whenever taking this off of there, don't come in here and try and use this little bitty screwdriver to pop this off, especially with this one. I haven't taken it off there yet, so I have no idea how tight it is. Get you a screwdriver that actually fully fits that, so you don't take and round it off. There's nothing like a nice, beautiful reel, and then you look here and it's got these little wear points where someone took a screwdriver that's too small, tried to loosen it up, and just rounded it over. It looks awful. So take you a screwdriver that actually fits what you're doing. Pop that guy in there. That one wasn't tight, but still better safe than sorry. What we're going to do is get my big old fat fingers in there. I can actually work at it. There we go. Unscrew that, take that all the way off, set it aside, tap your reel, pawl will fall out. Now this is what basically moving this level wind side to side. It runs right here on this little worm gear and moves it side to side as it turns. So we want to clean that as well. Put that over there in the cleaning pile. And now we're going to just pull everything out. It's just going to slide out of there. This one's going to be a little stiff. Oh, hello. Take the keeper off of there. Come on, guys. There we go. Keeper slides off. Then it's going to come out of there. Oh, come on now. Get it together, guy. So after you get that off of there, you can see all the dirt, grime, nasty old grease that's in there. It pulls out. Just fell out on me. Put that aside. What I do with these is I take an old toothbrush and I scrub them down into greaser. That way it get all in between these little grooves in here. And then it goes into the ultrasonic cleaner. Same way with the shield, because there is this little bushing right here. It does come out if you try and fight it out. I don't like to fight it. So I just leave it in there and I run, a little cotton swab through there. I'll put, some cotton on the end of this guy and use that to clean it out. And then it goes into the ultrasonic cleaner. Same way with this, just because a lot of times these things are dirty and they have these little bitty grooves right here. So I'll take a brush to it too, clean that off, then it goes off into the ultrasonic cleaner as well. Now, I like to show this trick anytime I can. These gears right here, these drive gears, Paul drive gear, these can be a pain to get off of there. I've seen people where they take a razor blade and they'll cut that top shoulder off right here. They'll cut that off of there and it'll lift right off and, go back on very easily. I don't like doing that because this gear is captured for a reason. Same reason we have that washer in that spool. We have a nylon gear and we have actually steel here. This is stainless steel. So which one's harder? This frame is, this cage. If you cut this shoulder off of there, that's going to allow this gear to walk back and forth. Every time you cast or anytime you're reeling, it's going to go out, come in, go out, come in. Only so many times that can happen before this starts wearing down on this stainless steel right here. So if you cut that shoulder off, it's going to allow play in there, and number one killer of anything with tolerances, play. So I'm going to show you an easy way to pop that guy off of there. You never want to take a screwdriver, put it under there, and start prying on it. One, you're going to scar up the inside of this guy. It's anodized for a reason. A lot of these reels are used in salt water. You do not want salt water on aluminum. It does not rust, but it does corrode. It'll eat through this reel. Two, it'll bend your shaft right here. So that shaft is held in there with a rivet underneath your emblem here. So there's really no way to tighten it once you bend it. So if you bend it and try and bend it back, it's going to be loose. It's going to wiggle. There's really no way to get to it except for peeling off this, getting a punch set, tightening that rivet back up. And that's just a whole nother fiasco there. So best way to do it that I've found is take you some 80-pound braid. You can use 65 or whatever. Just make sure it's thick enough to handle the strain of it as well as not cut into your hand. So I stripped me off about, 3 foot or so. After that, go ahead and double it over to where you have a loop. Just like that. Now, we're going to feed this loop underneath this gear. So what we want to happen is it go all the way underneath. Just like that. You can see it's coming out the thickness of that shaft. So we're all the way down on the shaft. Now what you're going to do is give yourself some line. Wrap it around a couple times, just like this, to where you have a little distance in between. And what you're going to do, of course, this thing's going to fight me. There we go. What you're going to do is hold your 2 fingers over this gear, so whenever you pop this line, this gear doesn't go flying. It may take you a couple times of popping this line to get it off of there. But this is the best way to do it because that line is going to be pulling from the center. It's going to be pulling from the shaft straight up. So you're going to give it a couple swift, jerks like that. And eventually you'll hear that gear pop. And once it pops, lifts right off of there. And you can see that shaft is perfectly straight still, nice and sturdy. It's not wiggling at all. There you go. Now to put it back on there, you would just put it back on and push it straight down. It'll click right back into place. That is the best way to take that gear off of there. Don't let anybody tell you to cut it. Don't let anybody tell you to, take it and start prying on it or anything like that. You're going to mess it up and you're going to need to order a whole new side plate for your reel. So go ahead and do that. Now, that's basically it. Hello, I'm dropping stuff everywhere. That's basically it for this side of the reel. I'm going to go ahead and throw all of this stuff in the ultrasonic cleaner and get it cleaned up. And after that, I'll go ahead and come back and I'll show you how to reassemble this and get it all back together the way it's supposed to be. So I'll be right back, guys. Alrighty, guys, I'm back. Got everything nice and cleaned up right out of the ultrasonic cleaner. Got it dried up. Make sure everything's dry, guys. You want this stuff to be dry. You don't want to be putting lubricant on wet parts. That just kind of goes without saying. Oil and water don't mix. So what I'm going to do, we're going to start throwing this guy back together. And I'm going to throw y'all a couple little helpful hints how to make your reel perform better in certain ways. So down here in South Texas, where I live, we have 2 lakes that a lot of people fish at, especially guys that like ambassadors. They love these ambassadors down there. It's Calaveras Lake and Bronig Lake. Now, what's special about those is they hold freshwater red drum. Red drum being a saltwater species, they're normally on the flats. You can catch them in channels. Down there, they're saltwater fish, but they can be acclimated to freshwater. And the reason they did that is because Calaveras and Bronig are actually cooling lakes for our power plants here. They're coal burning plants. They're not nuclear plants, so you don't have to worry about that. But now doing that, it creates a very warm environment for the water and the fish that live in it. So they threw a bunch of tilapia in there to help filter out all of that algae that's going to be growing. Well, then the tilapia started going crazy, breeding and breeding, breeding. So they needed a predatory fish that they could throw in there and maintain numbers. Well, the thing about freshwater red drum is they cannot breed in fresh water. So now they can stock the lakes with them. They can eat all of the tilapia that are filtering the water, and they don't have to worry about overpopulation because they're controlling how many go in. But anyway, the reason they like these ambassador reels is because they cast like a dream. They are like rockets if you clean and lubricate them correctly. So what I'm going to be doing to this reel is I'm going to be lubricating it as a casting reel that you need to cast long distances with. Now, I will be throwing in hints. If you're going to be building it different, I'll show you what lubricant to use where. But for what I'm doing, this is going to be a casting reel. So starting out, what we're going to do, we're going to be putting our drive gear back on there. Nylon gear, we want to lubricate this shaft. Now, this shaft, I highly recommend for a casting reel, a very thin set oil. You're not going to want to use grease on here. You're going to want to use a very thin set oil on here. You can see it running down the side. Use the oil of your choice, whatever you like. I would just highly recommend stay away from WD-40. WD-40 over time, it does start to break down and it gets sticky or tacky. That's going to slow your reel down. So try and use a good oil. If you're using it for trolling or, drop shotting or jigging, you're going to want to put grease here. Slow that reel down a little bit. You can afford to slow it down because you're just jigging. You're just trolling. You're not trying to cast long distance. So again, this gear, drop it right back on the shaft, push straight down. You'll hear it click into place. There you go. Bam, we're ready to go. That's all you have to do here. Next up, we're going to be putting our level wind back together and back on the reel. So everything is nice and cleaned up, ready to go. This guy came out a little rough. It still looks dirty, but if you kind of look close, that's actually not any dirt or oil or anything. It's actually where corrosion got onto this chrome plating that's on it, or nickel plating that's on it, and ate it away. So that's actually copper you're seeing showing right there. It's not any kind of dirt or grease or oil or anything that needs to come off there. So first thing we're going to do, this little bushing right here. So again, we are creating a casting reel with this. You're going to want to lubricate this again with thin set oil. So I'm going to put me a couple drops right on there. Where I put it, I put one up here right between the gear and that plastic bushing, and then I put one down here where that bushing meets the shaft itself. Again, on this side, I'm going to put another drop of oil. It doesn't take much, guys, just one drop. You don't have to sit here and soak this thing down. Again, if you're creating a trolling rig or, just a drop shot rig, just go ahead and put some grease there. Not a lot, just some, a nice little dab on there to keep it from, running dry. So get that on there. I like to spin it a couple times by hand just to make sure it's nice freed up. We don't have anything binding. So spin it nice, pretty. After that, take your cage. One half goes through the cage. This is where it gets a little tricky. You almost need 3 hands for this. So halfway through the cage, level wind goes back on. Now there's a track up there, up here on this guy right here. There's a track that this arm needs to fit into and ride up and down on. Okay, so make sure you get that in there. That's number one. That's where you need 3 hands. So you got to hold this, push it through, feed that into the track, and feed it into this side. Just like that. There we go. Got it in there. Next thing you do, go ahead and put this keeper back on there, because if you try and put that pawl in without this on there, you're going to fight it. It's going to fall out. You're going to think you got it, but it's going to be outside of that track right there. So go ahead and put that keeper on there. Now what I do is I go ahead and lubricate this shaft right here as well as that track. Again, not much. Just go ahead, drop 1 drop on there and 1 inside of that track. Just go ahead and move it side to side. We want that thing nice and loose, just like that. Now we're going to put our pawl in. Our pawl can kind of be tricky. If you have the reel facing this direction, the reel seat in line with you, that's the exact way that this pawl is going to go. You can see this pawl has 1 flat side on it, and that's what's going to ride in those grooves. So you want this to line up just like this. Just like you're looking at it like that, you want that pawl lined up straight forward and back. Now, if you just try and push it in there and tighten it down, you're going to mess it up. You're going to bend that pawl. What you want to do, you can see that pawl doesn't fit all the way down inside of there. Go ahead, push it down with your finger and turn that worm gear, and it'll drop down inside of there just like that, like it's supposed to. So don't force it, just push it down, turn that back and forth, it'll click right into place. Now we're going to put our nut back over the top of it. Sorry, I know my fat fingers are getting in the way, but it can kind of be tricky right here. So go ahead, put that on there. Now when tightening this down, guys, you do not have to be Hercules with this thing. It does not need to be that tight. It's not going anywhere. So just kind of give it a little snug. Let me move that to the side. There we go. Put your screwdriver on there. Just snug it up, just like that. You don't have to over tighten this. I can't tell you how many times I've taken these off and they're just over tightened or have Loctite on them. All kinds of crazy stuff. So just make sure you don't over tighten that. After that, we'll go ahead and spin it again. Make sure everything's working like it should. Now I like to put oil down inside of there where that pawl rides as well. You can use grease, but I don't recommend using grease there at all. Number one thing about grease, because this is exposed all the time, if you are fishing salt, you're going to have sand. If you have sand, that sand is going to get in there. Grease is the number 1 attractant for sand. So even if you're building a trolling rig or anything like that, drop shot rig, something of that nature, I still recommend using oil there because of the factor that grease loves to pick up sand and hold it there. Oil, it does, but oil is not as thick. It's not going to pick up as much, and it's not going to hold it there. So we got that in there. This guy's a little tight, but I mean, for sitting for 20 years, it probably hasn't even been broke in because this reel probably, it's only about 20 years old. So we'll call that good. Now we'll set that aside. We're going to go ahead and put our spool back together. So what we're going to want to do is I got to find that little clip that flew off across the room real quick. So I will be right back with you whenever I grab that. Alrighty, so somehow by the grace of God, I was able to find it. So what we're going to do, go ahead, put the spool back together. So first bushing goes in here, drop it in there. I'm using a thin set lubricant here. You can use this on, trolling rigs, anything like that. I recommend it. So after that, plastic gear goes on top. This is our gear to run our level line. Other side, again, bushing goes in, just like that. Make sure it's seated all the way down. Go ahead, throw some oil on it. Throw this guy, our centrifugal brake, back on there. Make sure our pucks are pushed all the way into the inside. Let's go ahead and put our clip back on there. Just like that. And we're good. Now after this, make sure our line's winded up because it's going to be a pain in the butt because I didn't tape it first, but oh well. So after that, we are going to put our rod back through like so. Make sure everything's spinning nice and free. We don't have anything binding up. Go ahead, insert that back into our cage. Watch that line. It can be a pain because I didn't tape it down. It'll try and get stuck in these little cracks here. Go ahead and work it back in. Maybe. Come on now. Where are you dropping? Let's go. What in the world? Okay, so our clip came off. What in the world is going on here? All right, throw that guy back together. This goes on here. Our clip. There we go. Okay, so we got our clip back on there. I guess I just didn't have it seated right or something. I'm not sure what was going on with it. But we got everything put back together. We're spinning freely. Now this reel isn't going to spin like crazy, just because of the fact that it has bushings in there, not bearings. You can upgrade these to have bearings in them. So let's try this again. Push your brakes all the way back in. Go ahead, feed this guy in and through. And we should get it to seat right into place. I think it's this line that's really messing me up here. It's not wanting to fall into place for me at all. What in the world? Yeah, see, this is just big old bird's nest, and it doesn't even want to come out now because of it. Ugh. That's all right, we'll get it. Third time's a charm. I swear, everything runs smooth and nice until I start trying to take a video of it, and that's when y'all get all this stuff. I swear this doesn't happen to me all the time. So, let's try this fact again. There we go. Okay. Third time's a charm, guys. We got it back in there. Oh, really? There we go. So, we got that guy back in there. Go ahead, throw your side plate back on. And make sure you got it lined up. Just like that. And put your 3 screws back in. Now, normally, I suggest running these screws in as far as you can with your fingers before you ever put a screwdriver to it, just so your screwdriver doesn't slide off and scar the side of it. But this one, with these kind of depressions in it, little dimples in there, it makes it really hard to do that. So just make sure, be methodical about what you're doing. You don't want to put all this work into this reel and then scar the side of it up with a screwdriver. Again, do not over tighten these guys. You don't have to have these locked down on there. You just want them snug. Go ahead, spin the reel, see how everything feels. Give it a nice little spin. Everything's working great. See, we have some problems in this side. That's what's going on here. It's not wanting to re-engage. We've probably got some nasty, sticky old grease inside of there. Of course, it's not going to do it again for me, but that's it, guys. That's the left-hand side and your level line. So that's it for this video. Next one I'm going to make is the right-hand side. Let's hope this side's a little bit better to me than this one was. I had a couple little issues over here, but nothing big, nothing we couldn't control and handle. So if you're looking for this right-hand side plate, check out the next video. It'll be up. So, all right, guys. Appreciate you watching. Tight lines.